Assalamu alaikum everyone. We're live on Facebook now. Asim Saab, over to you.
Thank you very much, Shazib. Assalamu alaikum, hello, and welcome to everyone. I welcome you to this very important panel discussion, which is about building a sustainable future for textile industry. My name is Asim Rashid. I'm the president and CEO of Creative Swan. And I'm really pleased to announce that today we have a panel of great, speakers and great CEOs and very tall names from our textile sector. So this fantastic panel comprises Asif Malik, who is the CEO of US Apparel, Hassan Mumtaz, CEO Navina Group, Dr. Khurram Tahir, CEO Emms, and Abrar Hussain, CEO Kubija Industries. Welcome to everyone.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
So before we take a start and dive into a deeper conversation on building a sustainable future for textile industry in our country, I would like to set up a context and explain a little bit about what is happening in terms of the context in textile industry, especially for those people who are either not very familiar with textile industry or who are not, in terms of understanding the challenges that we see in the industry itself at this particular point. So South Asia is a very important region when it comes to global textile and apparel export market. And overall, if we just talk about India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh itself, then we speak about over $90 billion worth of export. If you look specifically at Pakistan, then Pakistan's share in the total global export is approximately in the order of 1.5%. And of course, these numbers keep varying annually based on the overall output that you see. Textile industry is the largest manufacturing industry in Pakistan. It's the fourth largest global producer of cotton, 8th largest exporter of textile products in Asia. And textile industry contributes to around 8.5% of GDP in Pakistan. It also provides employment to approximately 30% of the overall employment workforce and 40% of the industrial employment. So great contribution towards job creation. Textile accounts for approximately 60% of total Pakistani exports. Again, this number keeps varying depending upon our annual outputs. And if we look at fiscal year 2019, then out of $24.2 billion worth of export, textile accounted for slightly above $3.5 billion. So this is the importance of textile sector in Pakistan. Now let's take a quick look at the business situation in first quarter. So when we were in February 2020, textile and clothing exports jumped to nearly 17% on a year-on-year basis. And this kind of growth was witnessed after a long time, as we saw in the last several years, a growth of single digit. But again, as the situation changed based on COVID-19 towards May, we saw some, different kind of numbers. So for example, in the ready-made garments, we saw a dip in the value of 46% and in quantity of 68%. In knitwear, we saw a dip of 33.9%. And in terms of quantity, approximately 38%. And in bedwear, actually, we posted negative growth. So this was the kind of situation we saw in May. There is also a general perception that COVID-19 pandemic has been disastrous for textile industry and clothing industry itself. Garment factories are reportedly have terminated the employments of thousands of workers as foreign buyers canceled or put on hold their orders or deliveries. There are fears that many small factories could close down permanently due to mounting huge losses. But on the other end, there are opportunities as well. As we say that there is an opportunity in every crisis. So for example, there are new product lines which are emerging, such as textile masks and caps and isolation gowns, overalls, and other cotton-based protective gear. And we are also hearing about some nice export orders being received for some of these products. So with this context, let's dive into a deeper discussion with the industry experts and the CEOs who have been, deeply involved in the industry. So I will take a start with Asif. So Asif, in terms of the outlook that we just quickly shared in terms of some data and numbers, how you see the global textile outlook? Because we are not, isolated from the world. We are also impacted by the globalization. So what's the global textile outlook in your view? the overall outlook, what's the human aspect of the downturn, and how we can manage our brand as textile males, as textile owners, as employers? Yes.
Thank you, Asim. Uh, I would kind of divide your question into two parts. The first part is the global outlook of the textile industry, and the second part is basically what you said as the human side of what is happening in the downturn, as well as the employer branding. So I'll connect the two parts together. So there are two parts to it. So in order to put the perspective in place, first of all, let's understand that this COVID-19 is a unique challenge which none of us has experienced in the past. So it's very different. In my opinion, it is a challenge where we do not have a prevention at this point in time. Neither do we have a scientific cure. All we are depending upon is care, and we don't have a visibility as to when do we get the prevention or the cure which is scientifically proven. So it is very difficult on the basis of these uncertainties to to truly or accurately forecast the outcome of the current crisis on textile industry. But nevertheless, there are many experts who have been talking about as to what the situation could be. So I'll just refer to a couple of reports which I happened to read in the recent past. So McKinsey actually published a report based on the hardest hit sectors. So in their report, they mentioned the few top 5, 6 sectors which are hardest hit. In those sectors, there were aerospace, air and travel, insurance, oil and gas, automotive, and apparel and fashion. So what they're saying is that out of all the industry, these 5 or 6 sectors are hardest hit. Similarly, if you look at Moody's COVID-19 impact heat map, which is very famous nowadays, they divided the industry sector into low, moderate, and high exposure. And their report is not very different from what I just mentioned about McKinsey's report. So they are saying that economic disruption is disproportionately higher in tourism, airline, shipping, automobile, and apparel. So the common in two reports is that apparel is worst hit as per McKinsey's report. And at the same time, the economic effect on apparel is disproportionately higher as opposed to the many other sectors. At the same time, there was a Gallup survey which actually was conducted with the users, and you will be surprised to know that about 40% of the users, when asked this question, that will you be increasing or decreasing or maintaining your clothing requirements? So the answer of 40% of them was that we will be reducing our clothing requirement. Only 6% of them said that there will be an increase in their demand for clothing. So majority of the participants of the survey also was negatively viewing the outcome of this crisis for the textile industry, especially apparel. Now, this is the context in which I wanted to give you my view. So various recovery patterns were discussed by various experts. Somebody said that the recovery would be V-shaped. Somebody said it would be U-shaped, Z, W, L. So different experts mentioned the different possible patterns of studies. And none of them is actually right or wrong, because they said at the beginning, because the crisis is so unique that it's very difficult to predict the recovery of the industry. In my opinion, it will take 3 to 4 more quarters to recover if there is no further serious or major disruption. Now, this is what I expect, that the best case scenario, in my opinion, at this point in time. But as we go along, we can further deliberate on this. But there are challenges also, which is very important that I mentioned the challenges along with the recovery timeline I just mentioned, 3 to 4 quarters, which would take us around mid of 2021. So the major challenge is that when you have these kind of downturns, then there are job losses, as you very rightly mentioned in the beginning of the program. So when you have job losses, then the governments get the spending is reduced by the consumer, and the governments get lesser taxes. So that is an economic downturn. So there are stronger economies like China and US and Germany which can actually pump money in to roll the wheel again. But in the weaker economies like Pakistan, it is very difficult that the governments put in more money to roll the wheel again. So with the job cuts, the consumer will have less money to spend. When they spend less money, the governments will have less taxes, which will kind of put it into a more difficulty. So that's the challenge, that how do we as an underdeveloped country get out of this challenge? So most likely this challenge will be sorted out by the developed economies. Once their economies are back on track, the trickle down effect most likely will come on us as well. Now, the other problem, which we also, or the challenge, which we also need to keep in mind in line with what timeline I mentioned to you, is that there are going to be surplus capacities. Now, these surplus capacities are on account of lower demand, as well as you have seen there are many brands which have gone or filed bankruptcy. So there are renowned brands which are getting out of the market. So there will be excess capacity and less demand. So that will put a huge pressure on the prices. So that's another challenge which we have to face and adjust ourselves in the next 3 to 4 quarters. The final challenge which I see is the quicker deliveries. In light of the financial pressures, the brands or the retailers would now prefer to have lower inventories. Once they decide to have lower inventories, we will have to expedite our process and deliver the goods on a shorter delivery. So in short, 3 to 4 quarters with all these challenges of price pressure, quicker delivery times, and the economic downturn which we'll have to face. So this was the first part of your question. The second part, which I combined the two parts, you said the humane aspect of the downturn and the brand image. So very briefly, Asim, first of all, we need to face the realities of life. The reality of life is when your business becomes smaller or your revenue stream is reduced significantly, the cost has to go down as well. And why do we have to reduce the cost? Because that is the only way to survive or save the livelihood. In order for future employment, it is important that we save the livelihood, we save the companies. So the cost has to go down. Now, what is the best way or the humane way, in my opinion? The, the cost in the textile industry, the majority of our cost is, or the major part of our cost is basically the manpower cost. So what is the best way of handling this difficult situation is that we got to communicate to our employees. So we don't give them a shock. We try to absorb to whatever extent we can our costs through other means.
Asif, I think I can see you are on mute right now. We can't hear you. Asif, I just saw the unmute when you did something. You just did something and we saw it got unmuted. Yeah, it looks fine now.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Great. So sorry for this interruption. I was saying that in order to look at the humane side of this thing, we got to communicate to our employees excessively, take them on board as to what is happening, try to absorb the costs as much as possible rather than straight away going on layoffs or reduction of manpower. And then at the same time, we look at how we can minimize the pain. By minimizing the pain, I mean the adequate notice period is given to the employees who are being released from the job, fulfilling the contractual obligation, which is a mandatory thing. There's a 1 month's notice, which you have to give in addition to whatever time you have absorbed them as employees. Plus, look at some severance as well for them. So if you do all these things, you be open and transparent to them, you be fair to them. I think that's the best way that you can manage the brand image of your company as a responsible company, as well as achieve your objective of minimizing your cost or reducing your cost when the revenues are dropped. I hope I have answered your question.
No, thank you, Asif. I think the key that you probably mentioned is about the communication and being candid and being open and taking a conscious effort to actually minimize the pain. So I think perfectly fine. Thank you very much for your answer. So let's move to Hassan Mumtaz. Hassan Mumtaz is the CEO of Navina Group. So, Hassan, what are the key learnings from COVID-19? You know, we all learn at personal levels, at organizational level, industry levels. What are the learnings? What would you like to share with us?
Thank you, Asif. Hope everybody can hear me well. As far as as Mr. Asif already mentioned, that this was a new thing for us, and nobody has passed through this, and no theory, no study, and no literature was available, no teaching and learning was available when we enter into this COVID. And the COVID itself, initially people were thinking that maybe it is a hollow virus, it will not affect so much. But over the time, when people go through it, people realize that that's a real thing, and the denial status went off. After that, we start struggling through the circumstances, whatever happened. But as of now, I will jump into the conclusion more. As of now, after passing through our February, March, April, and May, and then June and July, we are in. The companies has gone through a very new situations, and they have learned some new aspects of doing business. Uh, First of all, I would like to mention here is that work from home in Pakistan and especially countries where we are in third world, work from home concept is not very familiar. And important thing which people do during this COVID time was how they started working from home and act collectively for single goal. The second part was we started learning the importance of Industrial 4.0, uh, which is the most important talk now, that how we are going to utilize this technology and digitalization through our business model, and it can act on any kind of business. Uh, we learned how to reduce our efforts and our cost, and doing a similar kind of results. As Mr. Asif mentioned, that the companies have to reduce their cost now, because the challenge is today that the livelihood or of a company has to maintain. We need to save the company first, because this will give us chance to employ more people in future. So right now what we are doing is we are reducing our overhead cost, we are reducing our way of working. Even I was studying some of the things that work from home has added a lot of costs which are reduced, like we are not burning so much fuel, we are not using big offices, we are not using prime locations, so we learned that without this, business is also possible, especially in the industry of services and other like IT and other businesses. These are very key factors because they can reduce their overhead cost and cost of doing business in a very aggressive level. But as far as textile is concerned, we can reduce our office cost, our uh, overhead cost by using digitalizations and industrial 4.0. This is the company side, because then now we are not going to use uh, very prime locations and all these things. On the personal side, I guess when people got into lockdowns, the most important time they utilize is to be upskill, and use this time for their learning. Then the second part was to increase their knowledge by utilizing this time in a positive manner. And the third thing we all learned is to remain healthy, and how to set your day or life in a manner that you remains healthy. And this maybe we have lost its priority of being healthy, was not so important before the pandemic, but now everyone is taking care of himself or herself very well. So I think when we go into more discussions, we can discuss more important learnings. But as far as one thing I would like to mention here is we also learned, we in textile we were every day we talk about sustainability, and everyone was committed to do their part from to save environment globally and in Pakistan as well. What we have learned from this, uh, that after having a COVID situation, 25% of our environmental load is being reduced globally by not burning out fuels, by less traveling, uh, and also when industry was working at a low pace. Only the transportation contribute 35% in our environment pollution, and industry contribute 18%. And we have seen that countries like Germany has, achieved all its sustainable target within this COVID period. So these are, we have learned that if we stop running fuels like uh, fossil fuels, and we move towards renewable energies, uh, we can able to have a better environmental impacts from not only global. If you look at the Pakistan environmental conditions as well, between Karachi and Lahore, our oxygen levels have improved 50%. Our pollution load has reduced 50%. And these are the studies which is done uh, by global agencies as well. And before that, we were not able to find the solution for environment only, you know. And if you look at the Pakistani environmental conditions only, due to this bad pollution, 120,000 people die every year only due to eczema. So uh, these are the impacts, and global research is saying that almost 7 millions of people have survived due to during this COVID condition due to better environment. So not only the learning from the corporate side, individual side, we have learned how to live in a better world as well. So these are the key learning from my side. Let's. I hope I can explain more when we have detailed questions.
No, I think thank you very much, Hassan. It was fantastic to hear that, and you rightly pointed out the positive impact on the environment. We are all seeing that. We are all feeling that. It's just something that is happening. So thank you very much for adding a lot of value. Dr. Khurram Tahir, Dr. Export orders. So we just wanted to hear from you that as we are moving ahead, COVID situation occurred, and then it's progressing, and then we are in June, July now. So is there a improvement in the export order situation? How do you see the current situation? What's the future outlook? How it looks like now? We are not in February or March, so any better?
Right. In order to answer your question, I will take you back a little bit to pre-COVID times. In pre-COVID times, our dollarized export in dollar terms was about 14% higher year-on-year basis. And there was a surge of orders into Pakistan when COVID started in China. So what happened in COVID was that we were, generally speaking, and I represent knit industry, so I might be referring only to the knits. We were geared up for this downturn in a way that we thought this is a Chinese disease; it will remain in China. So we were more concerned about our disruption of value chains starting from China. So we were all having much higher stocks of dyes, chemicals, and all that. So not thinking that we will have a downturn, because our impression was that the disease will remain in China. So we were naturally more geared up. So what happened was when it started, retailers closed down. There was knee-jerk reaction from consumers, as my colleagues mentioned. A lot of customers went on hold. A lot of customers went on postponing things. Some paid, some never paid. But situation somehow, if I see the industry overall, I think we had about 60-65% of workload than the previous times. A lot of people amongst us, especially the top teams, the sales and marketing teams, they travel. So what happened was they were not traveling. So we were, most of us were on a growth trajectory, investing on investment mode, and we were not looking inwards. We were all looking outwards, growing up and up and up, sales and sales and sales. So the inner focus was, in a lot of companies, the inner focus was lost, and that created fat inside. That created that created uh, uh, that created so we need to fix those inefficiencies which were built up. So when we had nothing else to do, we had a downturn, and we had to look inside. We could see a lot of fat. We could see a lot of fat in the processes, in the stocks, in the inventories, and the way we are managing them. And a lot of things changed. And that is a very good outcome of this crisis. That now everybody is lean. Everybody thinks about everything over a period of time. The inefficiencies built are now taken care of, and we are better poised in the global value chain. Coming to the future, we deal with, most of us, like ourselves, we deal with retailers like Inditex, like C&A, like Primark. Their budgets for 2020 are generally in the range of between 40 and 50% for what they have released to their buyers. So they're buying for the balance year, as they have forecasted very cautiously, is going to be 50%. And as Malik Saab mentioned, it's going to be a lot of orders, small number of pieces, lower inventories, and maybe they ask us to handle some part of their e-commerce. So the competencies required are now going to be different. The heroes we had, the competencies which we built in our teams, in ourselves, are they have fault lines now. Now we need to build new competencies, the competencies of flexi working, the competencies of working outside our classical job description silos, where I do my job and this is my line and I cannot cross this. So that is something which is happening in most of the organizations, and which is a good thing for future. Uh, what I see is that there was a good financial response from our government and from the governments in the West. So duties were deferred. They were given the Trump package, and that created a lot of boost. Quarter three looks to be a little, to me it looks to be, we have to be very cautious. The orders are going to fluctuate. The air freight is not settled yet. We don't have air freight capacity, so we had a choice of, if the shipping is not very quick, we could send it by air, and a lot of our customers were buying by air. So that has gone very expensive. The orders sizes have gone small. Turnovers are likely to stay in 60 to 70% range, and I see more bankruptcies in Q3. So we need to be very cautious. If we go to the credit insurance side, I see a lot of changes, the way they are viewing the retailers. According to one McKinsey report, about 70% of the retailers are likely to go out of cash in this financial year. So I think Q3, Q4, we need to be very, very cautious, the way we sell and the customers we are selling to. Yes, sir.
So that's fantastic. So that this coming quarter, the third quarter, is actually determine the direction probably what we are going to do in the future. So thank you very much for this very detailed and fantastic analysis. And for the listeners and the viewers, please keep sending us questions, as we will be taking your questions as well. So please let those questions keep pouring in. We'll move to Abrar Hussain. Abrar is the CEO of Kubija Industries. For Abrar, we have a very interesting subject, which is business continuity planning. So in terms of business continuity, what did we learn out of this COVID crisis? What's the way forward? What are the best practices you suggest? And may I request, Abrar, that for a lot of those people who may not be familiar with business continuity planning, if you could give a quick run of what business continuity planning is, for the benefit of those who don't understand this, and then share with us some of the learning and best practices that you experienced in the last couple of months.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Basically, let me introduce first, as I'm Blank from Sialkot, and our industry is mixed up with the textile and non-textile as well. And we are focusing basically our industry on sports and safety wear. We are the leading for the motorcycle sector, and in motorcycle sector, we are doing vertical things. We start producing from gloves, then we do textile clothing, leather clothing, and at the end for the shoes. So our industry was, as is a hobby as well, like motorcycle clothing is a hobby business as well. and also for the safety. So our situation is a little bit different from fashion and from casual things, from the regular clothing, regular wear. Let me share you our experience before this COVID situation, like in January, February, how we are moving. Of course, in March, April, due to the we cannot produce anything. In the beginning, our customers they do like some hold the orders and some cancel the orders around 50%. But immediately, while Italian, Spanish, and US, they are getting a little bit better situation. It was really surprising for us that all our customers, 100%, they continue for the hold orders, and also the cancel orders they restart. So at the moment, we can't have a single cancel order from all our customers. That was a really great thing, and it's also maybe should be a surprise for everyone that in our industry, due to these 2 months, we can't produce. So right now we are doing the second shift as well, because after that in May and now in June, for example, in 2 months, we are getting the regular orders as well. So we are really on the full capacity and so on. So let me share, there are uh, two important things for our success. What we see, we already do these experience in last 10 years. Like one thing we started in the past only with the gloves production. That was the motorcycle gloves. And every customer where we go to sell like motorcycle gloves, they are asking for textile clothing, they are asking leather clothing, they are asking as well for the shoes cloth. So we step by step add different product line with the same infrastructure. I mean, our offices, accounts, export, all the fixed costs almost the same. We just add in the same field motorcycle clothing, motorcycle textile, leather, and shoes as well. So in this way, during COVID, we see if one product is a little bit less sell, then we have the same situation in another product, we are selling even more. So, for example, gloves, we have a lot of orders as well for the gloves, for this kind of COVID gloves and this kind of situation. So for to mix up all these product line, our sales and orders and is definitely is increased. And secondly, we had a customer in the back 10 years, is from China, is the world largest helmet producer company is MHR. They are only doing a helmet and they are producing OEM for the world. The biggest customers they were doing in US, and at the end, the US customers stopped immediately. The main buyer, 90%, they are only producing this one customer. And that was the world biggest helmet producer. So they are like a zero. So from that time, it was a turning point from the company. They launched their own brand with LS2. So with LS2 right now, that company is the biggest helmet producer as well and biggest brand in the world, like LS2 as a retail, or they're making wholesale, they have retail outlets and everything. So right back 5 years, our company Kobija, they do the same. So we launch in the same way our own brands, our retail network, our online wholesale all over the world. Especially we focus for Europe at the moment. So that was a really a big success as well. That we don't have a single penny dead stock in our warehouse. All the raw material, if anything is there laying, that we can immediately do our own design with own brand, and we can go on, we can sell. So that was a really great help for us, because once in Europe they are just started reopening, our cash flow is starting, and we are moving regular production there. And right now we stopped 2 months, and now our retail outlets and our online setup and everything, they are looking for the products. So I recommend that we must do at least all the big players are here. One thing where we are lacking, that the Chinese, they are doing already my many connections. Some of our Italian customers, the good brand, big brands, that the Chinese already bought those brands. So they are also producing and they are selling. They are also at least their 50% production goes to their own warehouses, their own retail network, their own brand situation. So I strongly recommend, as in Pakistan, that definitely we go in this way. Now there's a time that, okay, one thing we are doing for the OEM, for the brands, and every big company, they must launch their own brands. They must doing their own setup, and the time is there that we have to go for B2C as well. So at least our production capacities maybe 30 to 40% can be busy with our own orders, will be generated with our own brand. This is our future, and so we strongly recommend. We are really successful in this situation. So if there is a possibility that everyone can consider this, that instead of we are running behind to the customers, that we can have our own identity, and the margins are definitely, when it will go up in the beginning, is a big, huge investment, but at the end, the results are really good. So after 5 years, we are really in good situation, and we are increasing our this experience more and more. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Abrar. It's great to hear that. So I'm seeing a question here. Let's take some questions as well. Okay, so here's a question from Zubair Ahmad Khan, and the question is, what's your perspective on sustainability as a selling point? How Pakistani entrepreneurs can make sustainability a selling point in the easiest or the simplest possible manner? Thank you for asking, Zubair. Gee, anyone would like to answer that question? Sustainability as a selling point, and how entrepreneurs can take it as a selling point in a simpler and easier manner. Anyone?
Okay, let me answer this in a brief manner. Quite relevant question. And before pandemic, the main story we used to build in terms of product line was very much close to what he's saying today, that sustainability was the key factor. After your company recognition, price, and design, sustainability and impact on the environment was the key discussion point. And as I mentioned, that all the brands and all the manufacturers were trying to do products which are more sustainable and less load on the environment. From energy to fiber to transportation, and transportation to retailers, everyone was everyone was trying to add value in terms of less water consumptions, less energy, and in terms of less wastage. Sustainability was the key part. And as I mentioned, that it was the key part. So now we are also working on some of the new product lines, which are not only sustainable, but also you can say are anti-bacterial, antivirus, and they are more healthy fibers which are available, which we are using in our product line, and make it more sellable to the world.
Oh, that's fantastic. So here's another question. The question comes from Mujibullah Khan, and the question is, what's your view for 12 to 18 months? So basically, he's trying to understand what's your view on the outlook for the next 1.5 year. Gee, anybody would like to answer?
I can take this, as I started the same thing at the beginning.
Yeah.
You see, as I mentioned, Mujib, at the beginning, that things are getting better, but in order for us to get to pre-COVID situation, there are so many uncertainties. So there are different people saying different things. So in my opinion, for any industry which is lean and smart and efficient and have high productivity, meet the customer demand in terms of short delivery time, match the new level of pricing for the customer, overall, it will take not less than 3 to 4 quarters for us to get back to the pre-COVID situation. That's what my take on this.
Okay. So here's another question, and it's very interesting because I also wanted to chat a little bit more on the productivity side. So the question is that so the crux of the question is that how can we take our textile industry to the next level when it comes to technology, and why there's a perception that digitization is still not the core part or the heart of our textile industry. So the question comes from Sidra Salim. Gee, anyone would like to take it? As if you're smiling, probably you want to take it, but anyone, you know.
Awesome. This is a question which we face every day when we sit across the government, when we sit across the policymakers. You see, the short and quick answer to this question is there can be a very long discussion on this, but we need to remove the volatility in our textile policy. So, in order to make our business attractive for the new investors, the textile policy has to be regionally competitive. People will come in, the new entrant will come in. Once the new entrant come in, more healthy competition will be there, and we will definitely get to the level where Bangladesh and Vietnam is at this point in time. So the uncertainty is basically not encouraging the new entrants to come in, and neither it is encouraging the existing operators to invest heavily into this business, because we don't know what is going to happen in the future in terms of textile policy. This is very important that we have the volatility out of this thing.
Yes.
Asim, if you like, I would also like to add a little adding
Yes,
to Mr. Hafiz.
sure.
100% agreed with Malik Saab. Point is that if you look at the textile industry, digitalization required technology, and if you see the sector, especially where I'm in, is denim, and I must say that all the denim companies are more encouraged and more towards using technologies and investing into digitalizations and moving towards a new fibers and new experiments. So if you see the success rate across other textile product, wherever people are using technology and research and investing into systems, they are getting better. I must say that denim industry has been investing into technology much more than other industries. And if you compare last 10 years, denim industry went up from all the sectors. So it becomes the major contributor. If you look at the 10 top 5 exporters, out of 5, 4 are denim producers. So this is a very relevant question that we need to invest into technology. We need to work on R&D, and we need to try new systems and new work.
And Asim, it is
Can I
not
make a comment here?
it is not being done. It is actually being done, but what I wanted to add was that perhaps we're not doing enough. So that's what my take is on this. People are doing it. The good companies, the companies which are doing well, they are investing in new technology. They are investing in improving productivity, because there is a commercial reason for that as well. In order to be competitive, you have to do it. But perhaps, as the questioner rightly pointed out, we are not perhaps doing enough. There are still a lot more room for doing it in a much better way.
Can I make a comment
Ji,
here?
Abrar, would you like? Yeah, Dr. Saab, please go ahead.
I think there is a paradoxical situation in this COVID, that the worst hit is the more near to shelf you were, the more value added you were the worst hit. So this is kind of a paradox, that on one side we're advocating that we must add value to our product, but paradoxically in this situation, it has gone against us. To that extent, that if you take, for example, the financial institutions, a lot of financial institutions are now into policies where they will reduce their exposures to the value-added industry. So, because they were the hardest hit, the fabric or yarn was the least hit because they are behind in the value chain. So, and having said that, the technologies we adopt, as Malik Saab said, they have commercial reasons. They don't have reasons anchored in the vision of the company. They generally speaking. For example, there was nobody to carry samples. There were no couriers, so a lot of us went into digital sampling, but it was all reactive. So whatever digitization is happening, most of it, not all of it, most of it is reactive, is not anchored in the vision, was not already there, and so that's my comment.
Okay. Ji, Abrar, would you like to add anything on the technology side?
I think, of course, this is the key point for our industry, that definitely we have to follow the maximum innovations in our industry. What we see, again, I mentioned in our field, required a lot of technical things. And in the past, number one was Japanese, then Korean, and then Chinese. So in our line, all the business what is coming to Pakistan is due to definitely with technology and innovation, that now in Pakistan, our all competitors, that they are investing a lot in new technology, and due to this technology now all the top brands, they are moving back to Pakistan. So I believe this is a key of our future, that we must invest in technology, and especially in now in COVID situation. There is a time as well that during whole year 2020 and even maybe next first half of 2021, the international exhibition, all our term of sales and marketing costs are reducing, and we already made a strategy that we are going to invest for technology, because sales and marketing promotion cost almost we are not participating in traveling and exhibitions and so on. So we are making in innovation and technology some new investment, and definitely there is a big part from our customer side. They're always looking for something new, and especially in our city is a lot of lacking, that if we are doing from 20 years back something, and the same way we are moving. But last 2 years, a lot of people is investing in technology, and our customer, they are really impressed, and they are not expecting such kind of steps in Pakistan. So it's really, I can say, good to add what we can do in innovation. Thank you.
So that's really fantastic. Okay, so there is another question, and let me just go through it. Looks like a little longer text. Okay, so the comment is from Faizan Ali Waraich, and Faizan, that's such an important virtual session. Must be arranged regularly amid COVID-19 situation, especially when textile industry is already expressing its fear of production loss due to power outages, as per media report. That's a comment. And then the question is that, okay, so the question is about the digitization of the brand, where everything is going digital. Now, the way I understand this question, I think it's about how you create your brand using digital tools. So it's probably not about Industry 4.0 in terms of utilizing technology for production. I believe the question is about how you can build your brand using digital technology like digital marketing and social media tools and all that. So the question is, where it stands from your perspective. Are we doing good? Can we do better? Are we at basic level, mid-level, high level? What we can do to improve our digital marketing in terms of branding? Gee, anyone would like to take this question?
Asim, very briefly, this has become a mandatory requirement because of the COVID. what used to happen was that most of our people, the marketing and sales people, used to fly and meet physically our customers. And that's where the marketing and demand generation was being conducted. Because of the COVID, none of them can actually travel. So this digitalization has actually become a mandatory requirement now. Many companies, including us, are now developing digital samples as well. And they are working with their customers where not only the courier cost and the time will reduce, it is a new technology which previously was not fully being utilized. It is now being effectively utilized. So things are getting better.
Things are getting better. That's
Uh,
fantastic.
Adding one
Great.
more comment
Ji.
here. Also, we
Sure.
used to have a lot of fabric and garment shows across the world. And during the COVID situation, all these shows are done virtually and online. So all the companies who are participating before and the customer who are viewing the product physically, they recent past we have done all the presentations and our sampling on digital platform, and the customer are reviewing it, and it is very well accepted. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Okay, so I would like to take a one-liner or two-liner quick comment from each of you, because we are almost coming towards the end of an hour, and it went very, very fast, I believe. So the question is that if you have to ask one or two policy support items from the government so that you can take the textile sector out of the current crisis and take it to the next level of growth, what would be those one or two recommendations from a policy standpoint that you would like to have from the government? So just one or two comments that you would like to make in terms of recommendations. Starting from Dr. Khurram.
It's 4 o'clock.
The first thing is that give us our money back immediately you get it. That's all the refunds. Because
Refunds.
I mean it's a big pain. And secondly, the way countries like China developed their e-commerce, like logistics, they were in China. They made a policy for single piece shipping, and the logistics support of those couriers, of those postal companies, was given by the government. So it accelerated their e-com business. So e-com conducive environment needs to be created. That's my second point.
Fantastic. So Dr. Khurram, Tariq is saying, give me the money, right? Money talks.
Give me my money.
Any
Give me my money.
recommendation from give me my money, right? Thanks for clarifying that. Abrar.
I agree. This is the most important thing, that at least, I mean, if government is not doing other things in COVID, but at least our all funds, they have to, we are expecting during last 2 months, they must clear each and everything. Instead of that, other countries, for example, in Germany, we have our own setup, and for the even small business peoples, they give €8,000 per month. And it's already received. So we are not expecting that government is giving us something else, but at least they have to clear all our pending dues. And definitely, as compared with Bangladesh, India, and other our competitors, that our productivity cost, our production cost, government make some steps in this that encourage us that at least our production cost can reduce and we can compete in this critical situation to the world. So there are a lot of things to do from government, but on the basic level, we are even not getting our the money what they have to pay us. We are expecting since long. So we are requesting in this way that this is a time that to industry they can help, and right now this help will make a big impact to the industry. Is a big energy they can put to running the wheel of this economic critical situation. So let's hope.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I read a demand that energy comprises roughly 35 to 40% of the total production cost, and if there could be some concessions on that, that could help us coming out of the current crisis and become more competitive. Ji, Hassan Mumtaz, any recommendations
Yes,
from a
sir.
policy standpoint? They have already said, give me my money, right? So you want to add the third demand, or
Yeah, third.
two are enough?
No, but I will start from first. Refunds,
Yeah,
consistent
yeah,
policy, and little more attention. Like we
yeah.
used to have a textile minister in the past, and who we are the
Yeah.
major export contributor. Uh, if you see textile sector, we used to produce 1.5 million bales like 5 years back, and we are now producing hardly 1 million bales. So we are now importing cotton. If you are importing cotton, means you are sending your dollars out, you know. So if you look at the import and export, so the net growth is not there. So we need to grow our own cotton, and we need to have consistent policies, and we need refunds.
No, I think that's a great point, because as you rightly pointed out, our cotton production has gone down, and I think that's one area where R&D could really help us sustain and grow that level. So fantastic point. Ji Asif.
Okay, Asim, let me give you a little bit of perspective on what my colleague just said. Look at look at look at Pakistan. We are 221 million people. Our exports are about $24 billion, let's say, last year. Our imports were about 51, $52 billion. And the focus has been to reduce our imports, which is fully understandable. But in a country of 221 million people, we will have imports. And this trade deficit is currently being bridged by our overseas Pakistanis who are sending the remittance. If you look at our GDP is $330 billion, and our internal and foreign debt together is about $256 billion as well. So that's what our debt to GDP is. If you look at our tax to GDP ratio, it is probably the lowest in the region, around 10%. If you look at our per capita income, it is about $1,500, which is again half of what it is in the region. If you look at our agriculture, our yield is not more than half of what the Western class is doing at this point in time, and we call ourselves an agriculture country. As you very rightly mentioned at the beginning of the program, that 60% of our exports are textile, 30% of workforce is coming from textile as well. So in order for us to have a long-term prosperity in our country, in my view, we have to increase our exports. And the best or the easiest way is to go for the quick win, which is textile. You already have 60% of your export is textile. So why it is not increasing, or what is the problem with this situation, the current situation? You see, if you look at the World Bank recent ranking, which we all read a few months ago, that in terms of ease of doing business, Pakistan was 108 out of 190 of the total countries. Although it improved from 136 to 108, but we are still a very difficult country in terms of starting a new business. So we have to improve our ease of doing business or cost of doing business. As I said at the beginning, we have to look at the regional compatibility. The level playing field has to be done. My colleague talked about the inefficient tax structure which we have in the country at this point in time. The government recently disbursed about 200 billion rupees to the textile industry in terms of what had been accumulated, which is very, very welcome, because that was a very good help which the textile industry received. But the bigger question is that how come we accumulated that huge payables to the industry, and how will industry survive even in the today's very modern or efficient system which is being put in place? In the textile industry, I did a simple calculation, and 6 to 8% of your revenue is locked for a period of 4 to 6 months from the time you purchase and you pay the sales tax to the time your best effort you get your money back. So in a business, if your net profit margin is around, let's say, 10 to 11%, and out of that 6 to 8% is tied up for 6 to 8 months, what are we talking about? How would the industry grow then? So we'll have to work on this, and that's what my colleagues were saying as well, that this mechanism has to be very efficient, where the money is not stuck in the sales tax refunds. Similarly, the government gave us the textile industry or the export industry a tariff for a year, both for power as well as for gas, which was regionally competitive. And look at immediately our exports started to improve. Even today, if you look at 2019 and 2020, the fiscal year, despite the fact of the COVID, our exports are reduced by 6% compared to last year, as opposed to Bangladesh at 17% and India at 14%. So we got to move quickly on our policy. Bangladesh has again revised their gas prices. So we need to be very quick in terms of making sure that we are regionally competitive. Our money is not stuck. And because if we are not regionally competitive, then, as I said at the beginning, that there are more capacities and less demand. So these orders may shift to other neighboring countries to the region. So we've got to move very fast in this. In addition to that, we also need to look at how we can attract the new entrants. The new entrants can be attracted. Looking at the Bangladesh model, we'll have to create the export processing zones, where you guarantee power, you guarantee drains, you guarantee other facilities, and then you allot places to the new entrants to start the business. At this point in time, it's very, very difficult. We need to develop our skills, and that's where industry, we have to come forward and help the government. They have so many institutes which are basically designed to develop skills, but they are not very efficient and productive. So we need to develop. The last point is that we need to have our female population increased in our industry for the prosperity of the country. They are 48% of our total population. That's how we can increase the prosperity in our country. So these are my very, very quick few points. The subject is very long. We can talk a lot about this subject, which is very, very near and dear to everybody who is in textile industry. But I very briefly try to sum up on what my views are.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Asif. So with this, we come to the conclusion. I would like to thank Asif Malik, CEO US Apparel, Hassan Mumtaz, CEO Navina Group, Dr. Khurram Tahir, CEO Emms, and Abrar Hussain, CEO Kobija Industries. I also like to thank PSTD for organizing such a fantastic event. I really enjoyed the conversation. Time went very, very fast. I learned a lot. I'm sure a lot of audience must have learned a lot. And one message that I take away from this entire conversation is the message of hope. And that's a fantastic thing to hear always in life. So with this, thanks a lot, everyone, for watching our session. And over to PSTD moderator. Thank you very much. All the best to all of you.